Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is Dave Watson, talking about a method of communication that links people all over the world wirelessly, but it's not the internet.
And before cell phones even.
And before cell phones. Dave's with the Cedar Valley Amateur Radio Society. Ham radio is probably the popular term that most of us think about. And you've got a special event coming up. Before we talk about Field Day, tell me a little bit about how you got into ham radio and what you enjoy about it.
Oh my goodness, I can remember back when I was a kid, I had a radio on my bicycle, and I used to ride my bike up to the top of Mount Mercy College because it was the highest part in Cedar Rapids that you could get to, and reach out as far as I could, and that was back when CB was really important, or popular, and it was just the excitement of being able to talk a long distance on something you just put together yourself.
Oh, so you kind of started with CB radio during that craze.
A lot of us did.
Yeah, and then graduated to the full ham radio experience. Now, for those people who are not familiar, what's the difference
between CB and ham radio?
CB and ham radio.
Well, CB you don't need a license, and you can only talk in a certain frequency on one radio. And amateur radio requires a license.
And a smaller geographic area.
Geographic area, United States, if the conditions are right. But with ham radio, you can talk globally. You can talk to satellites. You can talk to the space station. You can bounce your signal off the moon and have it come back to you. There's a lot of things came out of amateur radio. Wi-Fi, GPS, cell phones happened because of stuff that came from amateur radio.
Well, and for us here in eastern Iowa, Art Collins started as a ham radio operator when he was a teenager, and when he came time for him to go into business, that was what he started making. That was those were the very first Collins radio, and that's what grew into the Collins that we know today.
Art Collins was very influential in amateur radio, very influential. He helped out with an expedition when nobody else could get the information out. He was able to receive and pass information back and forth, and then that transpired into him forming the company that he has that helps with military and global communications.
It was a North Pole exploration, and he was the only one who could make contact. Because in those days, nobody had these radios, and the radios they took with them failed, as I recall. And one person on the expedition happened to have a ham radio, and he connected with this teenager in Cedar Rapids, who then would bicycle the text of the messages down to the Western Union office and send them by telegraph.
Yeah, just a high school kid in his bedroom here in Cedar Rapids was able to really pass along some valuable information.
What's the process for getting your ham radio license?
Well, there's various forms of study material online. There's books that you can study from. There's videos on YouTube that you can watch and study from those. And there's 3 classes of license. There's the technician license, which basically covers the intermediate rules and a little bit of how it works. And then there's the general license, which gives you more privileges on the radio and more bands that you can talk on, more frequencies. And then the top one is the extra license, and that pretty much gives you all the amateur radio frequencies available to you, whether it's Morse code or phone, which is talking on the radio.
How's your Morse code?
My Morse code is not so great. I can do SOS, by golly. If I'm in trouble, I'm good on that. Morse code's a little difficult, but a lot of people pick it up really super easy, and others struggle.
So not required?
Not required.
Yeah.
Not required.
What does it cost to get a license?
The cost is it depends on your age. It's very inexpensive. At Field Day, as a matter of fact, if you're studying to get your license and you want to come out on Field Day, there's some information on our website where you can contact our VE manager, and you could take your first test for free. Oh. There's an ARRL fee that would apply, FCC fee, but if you're under 17, you could basically get your license for free.
Well, and that brings us to Field Day, which is something that amateur radio clubs all over the country do every year to encourage more people to get involved. So tell me about what's going on this weekend with Field Day.
Well, ham, our nickname is Ham, and Ham Radio, and that was really an insult that was made to us that we kind of adopted and embraced, and now we think of it as something positive, because back in the 1800s, telegraphy was really important, and that was the way to communicate. And because Morse code was new and it was a new technology, they referred to us as ham-fisted, as we really really, bang that key. So we've adopted that as a term of endearment, and we really accept it and embrace it. And so, when all else fails, amateur radio is always there. And even on the space station, one of the backup forms of communication they have on the station is an amateur radio. Just in case they can't get out, they know that radio will still work. So whether it's the 2000 flood that we had or the 2008 derecho, amateur radio operators kind of spring into action to help wherever they can, getting information out in whatever way they can, whether it's you can buy generators or get ice or food here, or the weather is going to be this that's coming up. We pass information along and try to help out wherever we can. And field day is kind of amateur radio's open house. So it's where we get around nationwide. This has been going on for over 90 years that we do this, and nationally, all stations across the United States participate in field day, and we try to reach out and make as many connections as we can during the 24-hour period, and we set up in a field and pretend it's like a miniature disaster. So it's just a chance for us to practice and make our equipment even better.
So what you do is you get generators, you get your radios, you treat it as if there were no external ways that we could communicate.
That's correct.
And of course, we have seen this right here in Cedar Rapids because you mentioned the derecho, but during the derecho, of course, everybody remembers there was no electricity, cell phones were down, there was no internet, and the amateur radio was one of the primary means that people were able to communicate and get services and stuff that they needed.
That's correct. Even the National Weather Service weather radio for the Cedar Rapids area was down as well.
Yeah, yes, it was because we have that here at Kirkwood, and our power was down.
So it was pretty surprising to see how much we were affected, as a city with no communication that we're used to.
So where are you going to be set up for field day?
So we're going to be set up at the Collins Complex, kitty corner from the WMT towers, corner of Collins and C. And it's open to the public. Amateur radio just isn't for engineers. We have a wide variety of people that participate in amateur radio. We have school kids, we have housewives, we have not just engineers, but construction workers and electricians and farmers. It's open to everybody. So if you don't want to talk on the radio, maybe you use Morse code. If you don't want to do that, we have a digital mode that people use to communicate called FT8. And, being part of an amateur radio club is about experimentation too. Like I said, cell phones exist now because of part of what amateur radio contributed. And you may get into amateur radio and design the next new whiz-bang thing that we can't live without 10 years from now.
And the vision that I think most people have of a ham operator is someone who's, in their house, surrounded by gear, wearing headphones with a giant radio tower outside their house. But you can actually get into amateur radio with small handheld devices.
Yeah, we have handheld radios for local communication, and then you can buy a used radio and a piece of wire, and we have an event called Parks on the Air. And you go out to a park and you set up a radio, throw a wire up in the tree, and you can communicate all over the place. Not just the United States and Iowa, you can communicate overseas with that little setup.
What's the farthest away that you've ever contacted someone?
Oh my goodness, I've reached Japan, Australia, England, Europe, South America, all over the place. It's impossible to really pinpoint a certain specific area, but it's very inexpensive to get into amateur radio.
So let's say you contact somebody in Japan. What is the content of your conversation?
Well, sometimes we talk about our amateur radio setup so that somebody else can maybe improve what they have. Sometimes we just talk about the weather or what's going on. Other times we have contests, and the contests help us when we get down to the back to public service to be able to hear and make better connections so that we can get the information out. So just because we had the flood here in Cedar Rapids, or just because we had the derecho here in Cedar Rapids, amateur radio in Cedar Rapids, Iowa has been able to reach out when they had an event down in Haiti, when they had an event down south where they had the torrential rains and the mudslides and people didn't know if they could get a hold of their family members. So just because you're in Cedar Rapids, Iowa doesn't mean that you can't help out with public service globally if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you can just get on the radio and just make new friends.
The Cedar Valley Amateur Radio Club is sponsoring the local organization's Field Day on the 27th and 28th of June. You'll be set up, it said Collins and C pretty much.
Collins and C, that's correct.
Northeast Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, we start setting up Friday afternoon, setting up the antennas, and we actually start the event Saturday at noon. If you need more information, we've got a website, w0gq.org, and there's plenty of information on there about Field Day, or if you want to get your license, there's information on there about our testing session that will be held at Field Day.
All right. Well, Dave, have a lot of fun with this. Again, w0gq.org. You can always tell a ham because their email address, their license plate, or whatever is almost always your call sign.
I want to also mention that it's not just the W0GQ Club, the Cedar Valley Amateur Radio Club. We're also teaming up with the Collins Club. It's very important, the relationship that we have with the Collins Amateur Radio Club. And there are some other clubs in the area. And we just all come together and it's not a bunch of clubs getting in together. It's just a bunch of amateur radio operators getting together. So the Collins Club is very influential in our ham radio contest for Field Day and for our Ham Fest that comes up in August.
I'm so glad that we have these active clubs here in the Cedar Rapids area because it not only is useful, but as we talked earlier, it's just a way to kind of honor the tradition of amateur radio that goes back over 100 years right here in our community.
Well, if you want to find out more about amateur radio, it doesn't matter. Bring the kids, bring the wife, come on out. If you've never talked on a radio, we can make it happen where you can talk on a radio and see what's going on from the history of radios. We'll have a little demonstration there, and you'll be able to actually pick up a microphone and talk to somebody if you want to.
w0gq.org if you'd like more information about Field Day coming up June 27th and 28th. Dave, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio most weekdays at 10:30, on demand at kcck.org/culture, or subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Watch our videos on the KCCK Facebook and YouTube channels. Our producer is Lydia Kilgore. The Culture Crawl theme is composed by Vivian Shanley. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.